Hello again. I wanted to make a video about one of my favorite Doom bands of all time. In fact, this is probably my all-time favorite Doom metal band. You know, and it's strictly Doom, occult Doom, just that perfect old-school Doom sound. And pound for pound, record for record, all their material combined, it's probably my favorite of all the Doom bands. And it's that time of year where Doom is really, just perfect. Autumn. When autumn hits and the weather starts getting cool and things start looking a little gloomy outside, and of course you have Halloween and all, just it's a perfect time of year for Doom and occult, especially occult Doom. And this is quintessential Doom, occult Doom, for those spooky autumn vibes. Perfect for occult fans and fans of the darker Doom type of stuff. The band I'm going to be talking about, I'm sure lots of people know this band, especially my very intelligent audience here on this channel. You guys are very smart about underground bands, and this band is not that underground, but compared to other Doom bands like Black Sabbath and Pentagram and Cathedral, and compared to them, they are pretty underground. They don't get nearly enough respect, and I don't hear them talked about nearly enough, so let's talk about them today. I have 3 of their albums, and I'm going to be briefly talking about each album, doing reading reviews that I wrote of the albums, and just giving you some history of the band and everything. The band is called Pagan Altar. Pagan Altar. Yes, from England. A great country for Doom. As we know, Black Sabbath hails from England as well. So these are guys that were kind of around just about 10 years after Black Sabbath formed. They formed in 1978, and they were one of the first new wave of British heavy metal bands to play Doom metal. This was along with Witchfinder General, which is another fantastic band. Witchfinder General, you got to listen to them too if you haven't. Death Penalty. Death Penalty is quintessential for Doom fans. Absolutely a tremendous record that I also have on CD. This is their first album, and my favorite by far, and it's probably my favorite Doom album ever made. And it was recorded in the early 80s, and it's called Volume 1, but also it was renamed Judgement of the Dead. So this reissue on CD is actually called Judgement of the Dead. And this is, if you haven't heard this Doom album, yeah, it's amazing. Okay. Then they reformed and did some re-recordings in 2004 of some of their other some of the other songs that they wrote back in the early 80s at the same time as that album. And they released this one, Lords of Hypocrisy, released in 2004. And it was mostly some old stuff that was re-recorded for the 2000s. And then this one is what was released 2 years later in 2006 off of the momentum of Lords of Hypocrisy. This was Mythical and Magical, released in 2006. And it proved that they still had it, that they still had that magic that they had 30 years, 20 years prior. And then they did release another album about 10 years later called Room of Shadows in 2017, but I'm not very familiar with that album. I actually have not really given it a proper listen, so I can't really discuss it. But these 3 albums that I have here, Judgement of the Dead, Lords of Hypocrisy, and Mythical and Magical, pound for pound, probably my favorite collection of Doom music out there. Unfortunately, the vocalist Terry Jones died of cancer in 2015. So, rest in peace to Terry Jones. He was an amazing Doom singer. His voice is really, really distinct and perfect for Doom. And it's very creepy sounding too. It's like this perfect anguished voice for occult Doom. But I'm going to go ahead and talk a bit more about these albums and read my reviews and give you a slideshow of some pictures and everything else. So let's enjoy this presentation of Pagan Altar's career, and thanks for watching, and I hope that if you haven't heard Pagan Altar, you go listen to them immediately after this video. Hello, let's talk a little bit more about Pagan Altar. Pagan Altar could not have a more perfect name. That band name just sums up the type of music they play perfectly. Just the most occult, creepiest, coolest sounding Doom from the early 80s. Just the most atmospheric stuff. I mean, if you're into atmosphere like I am, the thick graveyard atmosphere that this band creates, like, oh my god, it's a thing of beauty. Pagan Altar came to my attention 5 to 7 years ago in the mid-2010s. I could not believe that I had not heard the band before. Pagan Altar was formed in the late 70s, and they were one of the first bands to be playing Doom, basically. One of the first bands from England to be playing occult Doom. I mean, they were definitely one of the pioneers of occult Doom. Black Sabbath obviously coming a little bit before, earlier in the 70s, but when they were recording these early 80s tunes, it was, you know, they were from England, and so they were one of the first bands playing occult Doom from England at the time, along with Witchfinder General. They were well known across England, but they were really not very well known in the United States. It took many decades for Pagan Altar to really be found in the United States. They've gained a big cult following, you know, over the last couple decades that they didn't have in the previous century. Certainly in the 80s, I mean, they went under the radars big time. But they were finally found, and Shadow Kingdom Records put out their first album and also released a couple more albums in the 2000s that I also have, including Lords of Hypocrisy in 2004 and Mythical and Magical in 2006. All three albums are awesome, but Judgement of the Dead, which was their first recordings from the early 80s, is their masterpiece. It is just a thing of beauty for Doom fans. 7 tracks, about 35 minutes long. The whole album is good. I mean, there's not a single song on the album that I don't like, but I want to single out the middle section of the album, from track 3 to track 5, Judgement of the Dead, The Black Mass, and Night Rider. Those 3 songs in combination just absolutely blow me away. If you listen to any part of the album, those 3 songs are the best. So Judgement of the Dead, you know, was recorded and didn't really get released until the late 90s as Volume 1, and then it was re-released by Shadow Kingdom Records, and it was kind of remastered and everything, so it sounds amazing. It sounds very, very crisp and clear, while also retaining the very rough, doomy graveyard atmosphere, garage atmosphere that the early 80s recordings had. So it's like bringing that old sound of just, you know, the old Pentagram type, how those recordings were, like the First Days Here type of recording sound. It sounds very much like that. Kind of like Witchcraft's debut album as well. It just has that really basement sound, but they actually mastered it very, very well. They recorded Judgement of the Dead in a freaking haunted building. The studio was attached to a Victorian house that was built on church ground, and it was rumored that witches were burnt in the location. The area of about 500 yards surrounding the house was suspected of being cursed, a local superstition that was gleaned from the longtime residents of the area. So this album, not only is it an amazing occult doom album sound-wise, but it has this mythical history of being recorded in a downright spooky doom place, a haunted house on church ground. It had the reputation locally of being haunted, and the long-haired occupants that frequented the place were all a bit odd anyway. There was many occasions of strange, unexplained happenings throughout the house itself, but the majority seemed to be centered in and around the studio. The band didn't give too much serious thought to the subject and assumed that any ghost that could stay in there with that volume would be profoundly deaf anyway. the use of an Ouija board late one night when the temperature in the studio dropped to such a low level that rehearsing was uncomfortable. Yeah, they used an Ouija board in the house, and man, just a crazy thing. One night the band was doing a late session, which they liked to work at night, and everyone had come out for a break, except for a bass player who wanted to run through his part again. And when the band eventually returned to the studio, he was just sitting in the corner too scared to move his face, as white as a sheet, and repeating, "I've seen it, I've seen it." Apparently he had seen the shadowy form of a woman in black cross the room, then drop through the floor. Not only is the place creepy as hell, but this guy, the bass player, is apparently seeing ghostly women in the house. Another occasion was when they were recording the track called The Sorcerer, which ended up being a song featured on Mythical and Magical. They had just laid down the main vocal line. They were in the process of doing a rough mix to see how it sounded, and then they noticed a female voice singing along in harmony. And no matter how times they ran through it and listened, no one could explain it. And the bathroom toilet was located off a landing midway between two flights of stairs just outside the studio. Terry felt the need for a piss, so he headed up towards the landing. As he neared the top, the figure of a woman dressed in black came out of the bathroom and silently passed up the second flight of stairs to the top landing, where she promptly disappeared, apparently into a room. I was just reading this story about the haunted house they recorded the album in from the booklet of the album of the CD that I have. Just a little history about the spooky, crazy, haunted studio that they recorded the aptly spooky album, Judgment of the Dead. Definitely my favorite Doom album of the 80s, and possibly my favorite Doom album of all time. I'm going to go ahead and read a review that I wrote in my Facebook group back in November of 2018. It says, "A hello and a doomy Monday stereotime. Today it's an absolute Doom classic from an extremely underappreciated band. I'm talking about the debut album from England Doom masters Pagan Altar. Pagan Altar was formed in 1978 by Terry and Alan Jones, who are father and son, alongside Witchfinder General. They are one of the few new wave of British heavy metal bands to play doom metal. The band is characterized by moody, epic, and heavy music blended with an interest in occult themes. Judgment of the Dead, widely known as Volume 1, was recorded in the early 80s but didn't see a proper release until years later. The album, rich in atmosphere and thundering riffs, will always be one of my personal favorites of doom metal. The album opens up with eerie chants and you know immediately what's in store. The song quickly explodes into a doom-laden beast. Terry Jones showcases his powerful voice, a creepy vibe ever present which matches the music perfectly. These guys capture that occult and pagan atmosphere of old Europe better than any band I've ever heard. These guys are extremely influential. They're godfathers of the doom genre, and they deserve our respect. The band saw a resurgence in the 2000s with several fantastic releases. Don't miss out on Pagan Altar. Go check them out today." So, yes, I have Lords of Hypocrisy, which was released in 2004. It's got some fantastic songs, including the opening track, The Lords of Hypocrisy. That track is a masterpiece, let me tell you. And it has Sentinels of Hate on it, another masterpiece, and Armageddon, an epic 10-minute Doom track. Then they released Mythical and Magical in 2006, and finally, Pagan Altar was starting to get some respect. Finally, Shadow Kingdom Records was helping them put out their records, which is a record label that I've actually worked with. Personally, the founder of it, I've uploaded a lot of their releases to the channel. He's a good guy. And Mythical and Magical, boy, it's probably their second best album as a whole. And a lot of people would consider it their best album as a whole. I mean, it's a really good album, especially considering the fact that it was recorded so far removed from their early years when they were in their prime. They recorded it, almost 30 years after forming, and it sounds just the same as those early recordings. The same thick, doomy occult atmosphere is present in these 2000s recordings, and it's got some classic songs on it, including The Crowman, Flight of the Witch Queen, Dance of the Druids. Now, Dance of the Druids is probably the best song that they recorded in the 2000s. Dance of the Druids is just an absolutely fantastic doom track. Terry and Alan Jones, father-son duo. Terry Jones, an amazing vocalist. Alan Jones, one of the best guitarists in doom. Pagan Altar just needs to be heard, so I just wanted to take the time to talk about Pagan Altar here on this channel and put it out there for anybody who somehow has missed out on this fantastic doom band, one of the best of all time. They are actually still doing shows right now, but they unfortunately don't have their singer Terry Jones anymore because he passed away in 2015. But they, I believe, still have Alan Jones playing guitar. So, hey, I'm sure they would still be worth seeing if you can catch them in your area. So go check out Pagan Altar, and thanks for listening. Doom on!